Hey y'all, so we're back with the second part of this video for Raising Souls for Laura Michele Jackson's White Negroes, when cornrows were in vogue, and other thoughts on cultural appropriation. So part three is titled, so this is the last video. We're going to do part three and part four. So part three is titled Technology. So this is mainly on the digital world. So chapter five is titled The Meme. Kermit the Frog meets Nina Simone. So this one focuses on the memes that we use and the GIFs, whatever y'all call it, that are being used to interact on social media. And the first one was the crying Michael Jordan meme. That's one of my favorite memes, in which Michael Jordan, I forgot, it was during the playoffs of Golden State and the Houston Rockets, and I forgot what he was crying for, but Michael Jordan was there and he was crying, and it was the meme that took over the world. And this was 2016, and it was like so notably used, like you replace a person's face and it's the crying Jordan. So you can look it up. Like everyone pretty much knows what I'm talking about. Like this is a very common meme, and it really literally took over meme culture and technology and how we interact. And then the next one was about oh, this was back when Vine was popular. I loved Vine. This was when Damn Daniel, back at it again with the white vans, was popular. Like it was a notable video. People made parodies of that Vine, and the person named Daniel got brands and merchandise off of that, like endorsement deals and stuff like that. Got invited to Ellen, so it was a lot of money that came off of that thing. Like he had a lifetime supply of white vans, and it's like you really couldn't escape that meme, that video. And then there's Kermit the Frog. It was a lot of Kermit the Frog memes. Well, one in particular is where he was sipping a teacup. So it's people make a lot of that's the meme that's the most creative. Like a lot of people put their own spin into that one. Where, for example, the house is on fire, but that's none of my business. My neighbor's house is on fire, and that's none of my business. And that's him sipping tea or something like that, where it took over the internet. And then Jackson explained where the word meme came from. Um, and then, yeah, Jackson said, for the confusion over the term he created, we might blame Richard Dawkins, ethnologist, evolutionary biologist of sorts, and living specter, before fathering a generation of Islamophobic white men who consider atheism a personality trait. Dawkins, in his 1976 book, The Selfish Gene, coined the word meme to describe components of culture that survive, propagate, and die off just as genes do. And that's literally how memes come up. They make us interact in ways that are, it can be annoying, but it's pretty fun, and then they die off eventually. And Jackson said, though Dawkins has yet to return to the subject in earnest, the study, which extends evolutionary theory to cultural development, spawned an entire field dedicated to studying memes. I think it's pronounced memetics. Memetics is generally uninterested in why these components survive or the context that allow them to do so. Much as individual persons are considered unwitting actors within the gene pool at large, so too are our motivations deemed irrelevant when it comes to the transmission of culture. So, so memes is pretty much part of human nature. So, like, like social before social media, there's always been something like something that you would call it a meme or something. Like television shows, people had these notable catchphrases and stuff like that, and people play off into them. Like it didn't start with just social media, Twitter or Facebook and stuff like that. Like it's something that we've always been doing, and it's pretty much how people interact and try to have jokes and stuff like that. And then we're getting into like how the tech industry uses memes to gain some money off of it, like the social media apps and how meme culture is formed. It's it's like it makes people, like YouTube for example, like there are YouTubers that get paid to make YouTube videos because of like how YouTube be working with their monetization policy. Like I don't know if I'll ever get that, but it's you make a certain amount of videos, you get a certain number of viewers and a certain amount of subscribers, you get a certain amount of likes, and then you're pretty much popular on YouTube. That YouTube says like you're making our business worthwhile, so we're gonna have you work for us, and then you make these YouTube videos, and it really depends on the type of people too that get access to YouTube. So of course, white people tend to get these deals, while black creators usually tend to be under the rug. Even though if it wasn't for black language and black culture, the internet wouldn't have the socialization that it has right now. And yeah, Jackson was talking about black people are the best part of going online. Like Wu Chow the ghetto is from a black person. Like a lot of people get these phrases from black figures. And Jackson said, white people imperceptive when it comes to variations in black folks' speech are irritating enough. Race talk loves a visual metaphor, yet race too has been sonically monitored for centuries. Building on W.E.B. Du Bois and his theory of the color line, Jennifer Lynn Stover, a professor of English at SUNY Binghamton, calls the racial borders of sound the sonic color line. On the white side of this line are people who do not come together with more than maybe one black person at a time, people who do not socialize with black people whose black friend does not count them as one, people who are unaccustomed to hearing a black person speak off television. Almost any white person fits this description. So these words, a lot of this language and composition, it makes white people go into the black world a little bit, not all the way there, but get an understanding of but know that our culture has a tie to these words. And you could be a white person in a predominantly white town, probably no black people in there, and you probably hear these words before. And what's the next one? It's a racialized language. Like there's different there's a region. She has a regional analysis to it, so talking about different vernaculars, different dialects, different accents, different and there's patois, and there's creoles, and there's ebonics. And black people that talk black people in Mississippi have a different way of interactions in white and them and black people and probably like somewhere like Massachusetts. Black people in PG County have a different interaction with compared to black people in Baltimore. So, and Prince George's County is tied to the DMV. So there's DC, Maryland, and Northern Virginia. I had to specify Northern Virginia, but it's these different cultures, these different languages, and they make the internet what it is. Like it's a variety and a diversity of things that make people create contribute to meme culture. And then what's after that? Um, Sorry, y'all. I'm getting somewhere. All right, the rise and fall of Vine. So, as we all know, Vine is not with us no more. It had a good run. I think it lasted for like 4 years. So it didn't last too long, but it created the opportunity for a lot of people to just be creative with their videos. Of course, we got like TikTok now. Vine kind of probably paved the way for something like TikTok to come, but you can tell that black people are running TikTok, black people are running Vine. Like, the internet is this amazing place because of the black creators that make it happen. And yeah, Vine had this decline because they weren't pretty much paying the people that were making a living off of Vine. So it was no mainly black people. Like, white people didn't really take over Vine. I had to say that. But it was like for ethical concerns and ethical reasons that were the reasons why Vine didn't last long. But that's how we still got like YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Tumblr, and but and and then it's like getting to a place where white people feel this entitlement to do certain things, like going into the social aspect of internet culture. There are white people that know that black people wouldn't have been making black people the internet wouldn't be what it is if it wasn't for black people. So there's this thing called digital blackface and black fishing, in which there's these white users that have their profile picture to be a black person, and they go viral off of what they do, off the messages that they put, because of how whiteness works. And yeah, it's pretty much it's a racism. Jackson said in his 2006 master's thesis, Joshua Lumpkin Green introduces the terms digital blackface to describe how technology enables non-black individuals to slip into black personhood. So yeah, it's not just white people, like non-black people in period try to portray themselves as a black person online. And taking the game Grand Theft Auto San Andreas as a case, Green argues that the medium allows the player to avenue to safely experience the thrill of racialized violence and eroticized sex. Though its black protagonist, digital blackface extends the historical and ongoing minstrel practice that gives it its name, but new technology also presents whole new type of animal, more dangerous and more pervasive than anything before. Because yeah, you don't know who's like behind, who probably really is behind typing those tweets, who's behind typing those posts. If it's the person who actually says there are, it's literally the internet. Like, people try to portray themselves into a certain image, and using a black person is like, wow, you're really going to benefit socially out of this, while black people politically, economically, and socially are being depraved. So you think it's cool to be a black person. And then Jackson said, digital blackface. Yeah, where am I? Yeah, adding to Green's work, art historian Kate Brown applies the concept of digital blackface to the prevalence of reaction gifs on Tumblr of black women and queer black men that often take on a minstrelsy quality. So think it really can make a non-black person tackle their internal racism. Like, what kind of gifts do you like what kind of use, like it could probably be looking too deep, but thinking about the gifts that you use to interact, like are they notably black people and black and black lingo that is involved in those memes. And if think about your interactions with black people yourself, and if you're using those memes, what does that say about how you feel about black people? Do you think we're just there for your jokes? We're just there for your commentary? We're just there to give you a personality? and and I like that it's called digital blackface, because that's literally like how minstrel performers that use blackface are mocking black people and make jokes off of the expense of black people's pain and their death. But you put on the blackface because you want to be cool. You just want to get the crowd riled up, and it makes you think about the internal racism that comes with that too. For those who are non-black. All right, so I think that's it for chapter 5. So now we're on chapter 6, which is titled "The Viral Star: Opposite from Stardom," and this one talking about how a lot of videos that are viral came out, and memes that are viral came out at the expense of black people that were going through pain and suffering and stuff like that. So if y'all remember Sweet Brown, who noticeably said "Oh Lord Jesus, it's a fire," it's like, yeah, we're making, yeah, we're laughing at the videos, and I laugh at the videos. Like those videos were funny, where someone was remixing her commentary when her but in her reaction, like how she was talking and stuff like that. But I think people were forgetting that her house was literally on fire. It was her house that was on fire. So people don't really think about, like, she was going through pain when she was talking, even though it was at a light and probably a humorous tone. It's important to note that she was going through an act of violence, where she lost a lot of things. But I think she's at a place now where she has a house, because she became so famous that she got a lot of money off of the videos. Like I think she was on a Tyler Perry movie at one point, so she got security now. But it's like she became famous out of her pain. So it was like, it's interesting how the internet works in that sense. Like I don't think it's like we shouldn't be laughing at her. Like we should, like you should deserve joy, and that video is funny, but like it's important to note that her house was literally on fire. She lost so much stuff, and this is how she's getting the attention and the care that she does. Like she shouldn't have to go through the suffering in order to get cared for. So that was interesting. So it's like if she was literally going through being funny on a regular day, where she wasn't going through suffering, like, will she get that care still? So it's a thing that it's something that makes you think. And then that made Jackson go into more about virality of black trauma. So going back into like how there's sensationalism when black people get killed by the police, like the news outlets, the media sources that make them the story, like that's literally profiting off of black pain and black death. And it's 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 pretty much what is it like? It's kind of pretty much similar to how lynchings were. It's pretty much similar to how there's I think it was called Breaking the Buck, in which slaves were fighting each other and white people were crowding them, were parading around them. So it's like there's this sensationalism on black violence, especially if it's like black on black violence. Like the news will go on and on and on about black on black crime compared to white on white crime. And it's and she also went into YouTubers and how YouTubers get attention. So for example, Logan and I think his brother too, Logan and Jake Paul, they had this video where it was a suicide that happened. Like they're known for like making prank videos, and they use black lingo too, like like African American vernacular English and Ebonics when they talk to people sometimes. But they had this video where they were faking a suicide, which can be triggering and tells you how much about how pranks on YouTube are just calls for attention. Like you're just literally making a living off of making fun of people. But he's they're known racists, they're known white supremacists, they're known they probably won't call themselves that, but they're known for that. And PewDiePie there's videos of him saying the N-word to black video game players. And Jeffree Star, we all know, is there's so many white people that did such trash stuff. Like, I forgot what Jeffree Star did, but I know he did something that was trash. But Jeffree Star was a makeup beauty person, and I they did something that was racist. I know him and Rihanna are not in good terms. Like it's were they? I forgot, but I know Jeffree Star did something racist. It pretty much tells you about like who gets to be viral, what are the reasons for them to get viral, what are the circumstances that were put in place for them to go viral, and how they can get money off of it. So Sweet Brown, a black woman, had to get her house on fire to get the attention that she gets, to get the money that she truly deserves, because she didn't live in a community where everyone are getting their needs met. So good thing she's at a place of security and safety, but it took her house to get on fire and her reacting that way to get the attention and that she was getting at the time. And I think some good quotes I underline. Jackson said, black people taught the internet how to go viral, but when virality became enterprise, black people were seldom to be found. That goes into the Logan and Jake Pauls and the PewDiePies and other notable YouTubers. And then I think that's it. So yeah, that's it for chapter 6. So now we're on the last part, y'all. We're on part 4, which is titled Economy and Politics. So chapter 7 is titled The Chef, America's White-Faced Mammy. And this was pretty much going into how Paula Deen became Paula Deen. So if y'all know, Paula Deen used to be a famous TV chef. I think she still does TV, but she's a chef that's known for making Southern cuisine, and she's from the South, I think from Tennessee. So she used to be known as like America's sweetheart, America's Southern queen of Southern cuisine, which we all know is usually black people that run the South. So you have to get into the history of the South and what made the South, what made the Southern food feel so organic, so flavorful, so authentic in ways that you can't describe. And you have to tie that to the black people in the South. Think about think about slavery. Think about post Reconstruction. Think about Jim Crow. Thinking about the community of that black people had to get. Thinking about the culture that they had to build within themselves. Thinking about the food, the care and the love that they put into the food that they make, and how it literally made the South what it is, because it was the slaves that were cooking. It was the sharecroppers that were making the food. It were the black farmers that made the food what it was. And you have to make that analysis when you're talking about the South specifically. And yeah, Paula Deen, she was getting into the about Paula Deen incident where someone sued Paula Deen for a discrimination lawsuit. Like, I think her black workers were treated so harshly, and her brother Bobby Dean, was it Bobby or Bubba? Bubba Dean, yeah, Bubba Dean, and he was accused of sexual harassment of some of the black workers. So after the lawsuit, throughout the lawsuit, Paula Deen pretty much got exposed for her racist behaviors. Like, this was wild. Like, I think she arranged her brother's wedding, and the wedding was set in a plantation. Like, they were thinking antebellum South, which is racist. So pretty much her empire came crumbling down. She lost a lot of deals. She lost deals with a lot of the grocery stores and supermarkets and the retailers that were selling Paula Deen products and stuff like that. And a lot of her cookbooks that she can't get published the way she used to get published now. And yeah, there were a drop in sales, so she wasn't making the money that she used to make over her career. So yeah, so what else was there? So it pretty much tells you about what would have happened if the black people that Paula Deen got inspired for her cooking, for her ideas to get the businesses, to get the deals, to get the food, to get the recipes, to get the connections that she got, and how there would have been another person that would have got the attention and pretty much the money that they deserve. And look who we have here. There is someone named Dora Charles, who is a Savannah-based black chef descended from low country sharecroppers. So it tells you like how black people pretty much like there is a black person that pretty much got the blueprints that Paula Deen used and made a business off of it and got more profits than the originator. So that's cultural appropriation. So Dora Charles was said she was the unsung backbone of Paula's enterprises. And the thing is that um Paula promised Dora to some compensation, some benefits, but Dora never got compensated for how she contributed to Paula's fascination with Southern cuisine. And yeah, she was pretty much in her shadow. But yeah, Paula, she still is in a place of security. Like, she made so much money. Like, she's still safe if she's unemployed and not getting the not having the relevance that she has now. But it tells you pretty much how the history of white chefs and black chefs. Like the white chefs are the ones that tends to get the TV shows, the cooking shows, their cooking books published. It's this the culinary industry and how black chefs tend to not get the attention and the recognition that they deserve. So it was another case where there was this black-owned restaurant in Memphis, in Nashville, Tennessee, called Bolton's Spicy Chicken and Spicy Chicken and Fish. So they're known for their hot chicken, which is pretty much a known thing in the South, a known Southern food. And then there were these white people that got inspired. So you know what the story goes. They were inspired by the food in Bolton's restaurant, and then they made their own restaurant called Hattie B's Hot Chicken. So you can probably guess like who got the most profits, who got the most chains, who got the most restaurants open, and it was Hattie B's. So and I don't know how many spots Bolton got, but it didn't have the success compared to Hattie B's. So food critics were paying attention to Hattie B's. It was pretty much a known restaurant in Tennessee, and got these rankings and stuff like that. And then yeah, Jackson stated the same white Americans who jeer at the unfamiliar as their parents taught them to do grow up, develop a food palate worth a damn, and decide all is well. So, it tells you it's not even just what's we got from black restaurants, like even Mexican restaurants. Jackson noted how Secretary of Homeland Security Kirstjen Nielsen went to a Mexican restaurant, and the president that she was serving that hated Mexicans and wanted them off out of the country, and said all this stuff he said about Mexico. And that's cultural appropriation. And Jackson gave a good breakdown on how food appropriation works. So this is the example. 1, your new friends Bob and Rita come to lunch, and you serve them idlis like your grandmother used to make. And idlis was I think it was an Indian dish. And 2, they love your South Indian cooking and ask for the recipe. 3, you never hear from Rita and Bob again. So you made the idlis for Bob and Rita, and they love the food so much that they want the recipe. And you never heard from them again. And 4, you read in the style section of The Guardian about Rita and Bob's new idly bar in Covent Garden called Italy. And then 5, you visit the restaurant. The food tastes nothing like your grandmother's. Number 6, your grandmother dies. Number 7, Rita and Bob's children inherit the chain and open several franchises in America. 8, your children find work as short order chefs at the restaurant. 9, your children visit you in a nursing home and cook you idlis, which taste nothing like the ones you remember from your youth. Number 10, you compliment their cooking and ask for the recipe. Number 11, you die. So that pretty much tells you how important it is to have these how important it has these traditional foods in your generations and in your family, because it keeps the culture alive. It keeps something close to home, and it pays respects to your culture and your ancestors. And Jackson quoted what was this person's name? The last name was Twitty. I think it was a food critic. Jackson said that Lost Ark meets Noah's Ark mentality is intellectually thrilling and highly motivational, Twitty writes, but it pales in comparison to the task of providing economic opportunity, cultural and spiritual reconnection, improved health and quality of life, and creative and cultural capital to the people who not only used to grow that food for themselves and others, but have historically been suppressed from benefiting from their ancestral legacy. So going back into Hattie B's hot chicken and Bolton's spicy chicken and fish, I bet y'all Hattie B is charging Bolton for the food that Hattie makes, even though Hattie is inspired by Bolton. And I bet you they're not giving the black people in Tennessee free food. So it's like you have to pay up. So you have to pay something for the food that your family makes, even though it tastes nothing like your family's, but it tells you about the quality, that lack of quality in a capitalist and profit motive journey. So I think that was it with chapter 7. So I think, yeah, that was it for chapter 7. So chapter 8 is was titled "The Entrepreneur: A Bit Free," and it talked about the historical look into notable black cities such as Washington, D.C., Chicago, the communities that are in those cities, and the historical violence that they went through, the quote-unquote race riots that happened, particularly during the 19th century and the early part of the 20th century. Well, pretty much the first half of the 20th century, like Tulsa, Rosewood. There were massacres in Philadelphia, Detroit, New Orleans, or New Orleans. I don't know how y'all say it. Baltimore, Chicago, Hattiesburg, New York, Knoxville, Omaha, Detroit, Charlotte, and the most recent one in Charlottesville in 2017. A lot of this white supremacist centered violence. So Jackson wants people to refrain from using the term race riot because these were things that were organized. These were things that government people know about. They knew these things were coming. These were things that were pre-planned. So Jackson wants us to call them pogrom, which is titled, which is defined an organized, officially tolerated attack on any community or group. So she wanted to understand that this was something that was approved by the state. The state let all of this happen, and innocent lives were slaughtered. There were casualties. There were a lot of fatalities, and she was pretty much talking about. She was talking about the Wilmington Massacre. I didn't learn too much about the Wilmington Massacre. In what year was it? 1898 was the Wilmington Massacre, and to this day they don't have a documented number of how many black people died from the Wilmington Massacre, which is unfortunate. Like, I'm really thinking about have the families of the people that survived and killed, did they get the services, did they get the things that help with their generational trauma, do they have the resources that they need to heal from what pretty much probably restructured their community because of that massacre? And then talking about Tulsa, which talking about Greenwood, Oklahoma, in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which is a notable black community. And before the massacre that happened, it used to be called Black Wall Street. So there were a lot of black businesses there, but they no longer there after the massacre happened. Like, you talk about such violence, like there were there were airplanes that were dropping bombs to the city. So it was something like, I don't know how many days it happened, but the state let it happen for so long and allowed for such violence to occur that it's sickening. It's like unbelievable. And then Jackson was talking about, if y'all remember the Starbucks incident where there were black people that were going to a Starbucks, they were talking about business stuff, but they didn't order anything from Starbucks. And then the manager called the police on them because they didn't order food. They didn't order anything from Starbucks. But there was a white person that recorded the incident, and that person kind of got praised for white people know when racism is happening and can destroy racism. So it was like, oh, we can handle racism. We got each other, brother, and stuff like that. There was this kind of kumbaya moment that white people were having as if that was annihilating racism because of that incident. And then there was this, and after that, there was a popularization of white people calling on the police. Like, if y'all remember, Permit Patty, Barbecue Becky, and Coupon Carl, there were notable white people that were calling law enforcement officials to handle black people. Like Barbecue Becky, were calling police on black people that were in a barbecue. And it's when the notable Karen trend was going on this typical white woman that calls the police on black people when the black people clearly did nothing to cause harm. And yeah, I think that was it. And then there was the history of the United States and how it tackles weed. So this is a long history about the United States and weed, but it pretty much talked about how the government was intervening when it comes to weed. Like, I think they were talking about an incident where a college girl died because she was using too much weed. Like, she was using weed irresponsibly. So it's pretty much how it also influenced the war on drugs. And there was this man named Harry J. Onslinger, who was the federal director of the Federal Bureau of Narcotics, and they were appointed by Herbert Hoover. So Onslinger was pretty much, when it comes to drugs, that's his area that he deals with. But it leads to a criminalization of drugs. Like, it's pretty much this criminalization of drugs and not focus on rehabilitation. So it's also lead into how black people tend to get arrested more than white people for drug-related crimes, quote-unquote crimes, or drug-related offenses, and especially non-violent drug offenses. So, at least the prison industrial complex that we have right now, and now we're in a state where people are becoming more informed about weed and cannabis and marijuana, and people are literally making businesses off of them. That there's, like, weed is becoming decriminalized now and becoming legalized in certain states, but it's hard. Like, black people are still incarcerated for weed or any other drugs while white people are literally making enterprises off of cannabis sales. And it's hard to become a black person to get the startup money, especially so it's hard to start. It's hard to get the startup money for black cannabis experts to make a business off of the industry. So they had to rely on a white cannabis business owner that is kind enough to help them in the business before they actually take off and get the money that they try to profit out of. And and then Jackson also went into how we're a gig economy, and there's like all these things, like people make money off of working for Lyft, for Uber, for Grubhub, DoorDash, all of these things that are considered gigs. Like you have to wait for something in order to actually work. And she also talked about how hard is it for licensing. So black hairstylists and makeup gurus compared to white cosmetologists and stuff like that. It's easier for them to get the licensing, while it's a struggle for the black cosmetologist. And then how social media is becoming something where people really rely on to actually make ends meet. So Instagram has a boutique and a marketplace now, and there are websites like WordPress and stuff like that. Like things are becoming more accessible as the internet progresses. Like people are literally had to pay medical expenses through GoFundMe and stuff like that. And people are making a lot of businesses nowadays, whether it's a t-shirt that's a black power, as if that's contributing to black power. No shade, LLC Twitter and 9 to 5 Twitter, but it's literally where things where people can it's so many different avenues to make a business and being in the industry. And then for social media, especially Instagram, Jackson talked about the shade room, which everyone knows the shade room, which is it can be problematic and stuff like that. It's a celebrity gossip Instagram page where people get in tune with pop culture. Like I would say it's like the Wendy Williams of Instagram, of social media, like the way like they get, like people get their news. So she pretty much talked about who was the girl's name that started the Shade Room. It was Amanda something, but she pretty much got a lot of attention, a lot of benefit off of how people gossip, how people interact with each other when they get the news from something, even if it's not entirely true, and created the Shade Room, which is becoming like an empire in social media, and it has so many followers. It has millions and millions and millions of followers. And the moment something is posted, like thousands of people have already liked it without even reading the post. And and the post can be about anything. And that's pretty much like how it's like the TMZ of the times. It's like how technology has really advanced and evolved into these outlets and these certain and creating certain different strategies. Like there's always something that's going to evolve and advance to help people get the attention that they wanted, especially on social media. And I think that's it. So That's the end of chapter 8, and now we're on the last chapter, y'all, which is chapter 9, titled The Activist, The Time for Anger. And she's pretty much talking about how white people have been acting during the 2016 presidential election, and we all know the result of that election is, and then the Women's March happened. And I didn't know that the Women's March was originally a black led campaign. But I know about the Million Women March because what's funny was that the Women's March was originally about going to be called the Million Women's March. Like there was already a Million Women's March, which was because it just not paid attention to because it's black women that led that. But then the Women's March happened, which I guess they were able to make it work and appropriate the black led Women's March campaign, and that became one of the largest protests in history, global protests, because there were protests outside the United States too. And then they were talking, and then she was talking about all this protest rhetoric, like, "Hey Trump, women are people too. Hashtag grab America back. Build a uterine wall." And this kitty grabs back, and stuff like that. And it's it also talked about how the movement is like it's white centered. It's centered in people that are non-disabled, people that are not trans, they're cis, and heterosexual women. So it pretty much prioritizes what they want. The movement is pretty much not anti-state. It's something that's approved by the state, literally, because it's white, heterosexual, middle class, bourgeois, like elites are in control because because we had the president that we had after the 2016 presidential election. So it's something that's not anti-state. It's not anti it's not anti-United States. It's kind of pretty much a response to the outcome of the 2016 presidential election. Like it wouldn't have existed if it wasn't for the result that happened. So it pretty much talks about how narrow-minded, how it's not macro level focus that March was. It doesn't have a class analysis. It doesn't have a racial analysis. It doesn't have an expansive a gender spectrum analysis. It only focuses on cis white women's tears, that they're not participating in the American empire. That's pretty much what the Women's March is about. And that it led to how, so after the Women's March, it pretty much digital organizing became different than how it used to be. Like there used to be there was Black Lives Matter, but it became like people are like learning more and more about how to go through these movement circles, what's wrong, what's right with it, and stuff like that. And it also led to like the Me Too and Time's Up movement, and hashtag solidarity is for white women, hashtag Oscars to white. So all these things through these campaigns, and how action and change are generated through these social media actions. And then let me see if I have any quotes that I took. Yeah, Jackson was talking about solidarities for white women hashtag. Hashtag solidarities for white women when you care about the organic label on your strawberry than about the immigrant woman who harvested it. Tweeted the reporter Aura Bogado. When white women are called brilliant for exposing oppression and women of color are labeled angry, hashtag solidarity is for white women, tweeted the educational policy professor Patricia D. Lopez. So it's pretty much critiquing white feminism and how it's pretty much always been like white women only justify the anger of cis white heterosexual women, and not the women that are queer, not the women that are black, not the women that are poor, not the women that are disabled, not the women that are fat. um it's it pretty much talks about like there's only one acceptable way of moving through womanhood. And then and this was after Jackson was talking about this cis white man that's a women's and genders studies professor who was accused of sexual harassment. So it's like, the theories and not doing the practice, huh? It's and then there was a lot of white women that were supporting him. So that's how hashtag solidarity for white women came about. And then there were other things like hashtag Black Power is for Black men, which talks about the misogyny and the homophobia that cis het Black men move through in Black liberation work. And then there was hashtag not your Asian sidekick. And I think that was it. So Flash, Jackson was talking about white optimism, because they were talking about how Trump is not America. Trump is anti-America. Well, Trump is actually as American as apple pie. America justifies racism, sexism, and all the things that make a Donald Trump. And like, he's literally a billionaire and getting away with all these things. And because America tolerates it and accepts it. So it's this paradox and contradiction that comes with white optimism, because it pretty much not looking within themselves on how they contribute to the white supremacist capitalist framework of institutions, interactions, and the politics of it all. And we can't have a movement that's against the state and against what the state tolerates and against what the state accepts, and try to seek approval from the state. Like, it makes no sense. Like the Women's March, there were people hugging the police. So it pretty much not going into like how police violence is causing communities to be this way. Like, like it shows like people are not really on the same page. People don't have the same agenda. People have different agendas when they go into organizing and activist mindsets and in actions and events and interaction and organizations. And it pretty much like they're pretty much limiting to what the state approves, and not realizing that the state is the problem. And then Jackson was talking about selective anger. Like, the only anger that is praised is the white women that are bourgeois and have ties to the state. And then Jackson stated, anger too experienced a makeover. The most racialized emotion in American history was suddenly cool. That hadn't been true before. America fears anger from black people, has always feared anger from black people, considers black people angry even when something more like despair or fatigue better suits the mood. And then Jackson said, anger is not a privilege. Anger expressed in public is a privilege. Anger expressed in public and left in public is a privilege. Anger picked up and dropped off like dry cleaning. Anger learned from dystopian fiction into dystopian reality. Anger neutralized by the hope that the pendulum must eventually swing the other way. Anger neutralized by the knowledge that the other end of the pendulum's arc means opportunity and thriving. Anger neutralized by faith in what American has been and can be. Anger chosen like a chalky vitamin, not inborn like bile. But anger, deserved and glorious anger, cannot feed the soul. Anger is the one who feeds. A protest is not an event, but an endurance test. If we survive, it's only for sharing such a scourge. I hope everyone keeps on till tomorrow, whenever that comes. So she's pretty much calling out white liberalism and neoliberalism and how you're pretty much going into things that are inspired by radical tradition and anti-state principles, but you want to be approved by the state. You only want things that the state deems respectable. So that's literally goes against everything that gives you the roots to create social change. It's either this happens or you're illegitimate. So she was talking about when people were saying like if Hillary had won, we'd be at brunch by now, knowing people are still at brunch and stuff like that even during the last presidency. And then like you're only caring about this problem because of there's this white woman, this imperialist and capitalist white woman you wanted to head the American empire. But no matter who's in the American empire, you're still going to be at brunch and you're still going to have to fight these things. That these problems aren't going to go away, and you need to do some inner work. So that was it for that chapter, and I'm gonna go into the conclusion in which Jackson was hinting on like what's a conclusion to deal with cultural appropriation. Like she was responding to this critique about what cultural appropriation and how it's incoherent, and like you literally can't live your life without having an instance of cultural appropriation, especially particularly if you're a white person. So Jackson knows that, so it's like up to society to give the resources to the people that it keeps stealing from. That's literally what Jackson is trying to say. She said, binding the disparate cultural touchstones in this book, appropriation runs on desire more than hatred, inattention more than intention. I've made my case out of cases, making the commonplace exceptional by default, but I cannot overstate the regularity of appropriation, how often it is, for most, a non-dilemma. So she's saying it's pretty much inevitable, especially when it comes to like music, fashion, arts, all of these industries. Cultural appropriation in America, it makes these things happen. But appropriation is impossible to eliminate from our most basic appreciation of what it means to create and share something, whether or not that something was ever intended to be for sale. Appropriative gestures are devilish in their contortions, every bit as convoluted as they make you feel by sussing them out. And Jackson proposes, complex problems often deserve complex solutions, but in the case of power and appropriation, the answer is quite simple when looked at from the bird's eye view. Equality is too tame. Fair compensation is too modest. Our world deserves reordering. Only under a transformation on that scale could I ever imagine a version of society in which Black people have options instead of destinies, options instead of statistics. Reorganizing the terms of what counts and who counts on planet Earth and beyond is beyond only fathomable by minds more creative than my own. So this is the same solution that Michelle Alexander proposed on the new Jim Crow, is that there needs to be a drastic transformation of everything. Like, this system isn't working. It's not working for everybody. It's doing harm when you just do these little reforms. Like, there needs to be a structural change. It needs to be an abolition of so many things that the state pushes and advocates. So yeah, that's White Negroes by Lauren Michele Jackson. I think this is one of my favorite books. And it's very new. I think this was released in 2019. It reminded me, the reading reminds me of Adrienne Marie Brown's Pleasure Activism. So it's a read with words that you're familiar with. It's not words that you have to look up every time, but it's stuff that you're familiar with. It's stuff that feels fresh, and it shows you that cultural appropriation, it's a thing that can be problematic, and it's something that needs to be discussed and interrogated. Well, that's it. Thank y'all for watching this video for Raisin Souls. Make sure y'all follow Raisin Souls on on the Instagram at Raisin Souls. And my personal Instagram is at Intellectual Albert. It'll be on the description box below. And I hope y'all have a good day, and stay tuned for the next book. All right, see ya.